Welcome to Relationship Talk, the podcast where we have real conversations about love, well-being, dating, and relationships. In today's episode, I had an expansive conversation with Katie Rössler, who is a dynamic licensed therapist and coach, empowering high achievers to craft visionary lives. With 15 years of experience, Katie has guided individuals and couples to turn their dreams into actionable plans. Her expertise in hidden grief, burnout, communication skills, and emotional intelligence brings a holistic approach to her clients' growth. You can find out more about Katie's fantastic works, including her Relationship Reset podcast and books, in the show notes. During this stay or go, remove the guilt conversation, Katie reveals what a midlife crisis is in the context of a relationship. Is this normal? Is it different from a personal midlife crisis or the 7-year itch? It certainly is. Katie also speaks about the common signs and misconceptions about a relationship midlife crisis. Does it look different for men and for women? Katie reveals all. Alongside, you will know how some self-reflection plays a huge role in deciding whether to stay in the relationship or go. And so much more. You are about to get the whole RLT, aka Real Relationship Talk, so you're going to want to watch the entire episode. I hope that you will find this conversation as rich as I did. And remember to subscribe, hit that like button and that notification bell. I'm Teresha Young, your international wellness and relationship coach. Enjoy, take notes, and get ready to apply all key messages you take away today. Hello, Katie. Welcome to the show. How are you doing today?
Thank you. I'm doing really well, and I'm really excited about our conversation today.
Oh, me too, because we're going to be talking about one of the biggest dilemmas that people can face in their relationship journey, which is to stay or to go.
Yeah.
That is the question, huh? As
hmm
Shakespeare would put it. So before we delve into it, because we're just looking at it from a very specific phase in a relationship stage. So before we actually go into what that phase may look like, Katie, I would love for you to share with the audience a bit more about who you are, what you do, and what led you to becoming a therapist and a coach.
Yeah, so I'm Katie Rössler. I'm a licensed professional counselor from the United States, but I live in Munich, Germany. So here I do more coaching. And I really consider myself a relationship strategist because at the end of the day, I'm looking at what practical tools will help high achieving couples to really build the relationship they desire to have. My background back in the day when I was like, let's go to university. What should I study? I actually wanted to be a doctor. So I went into the pre-med program with a focus in physics. And I was like, this is what I'm going to do. I love math and science. And in that experience, I realized these are not my people. They are not social enough. I am too extroverted. And I'm female. So it really was like, nah, this is just not a good mix. And I took a psychology class. Now, funny enough, I grew up as a military kid, moving every 2 to 3 years. I didn't realize how much that had taught me how to adjust to people, to be very aware and learn about personality differences and communication styles. So, going into the world of psychology felt like a glove, and it was a perfect fit. I really was like, this is my calling. And going through my parents' divorce as a teenager, I had experienced counseling. I knew, what that whole process was like. And I knew pretty quickly once I went into the world of psychology that I wanted to do marriage and family therapy. And that's what I went on to study. And so 15 years later, many different adjustments to my career due to family and moving. And here I am, and I do primarily my work online and supporting couples all around the world. And it's really been such a gift to be able to reach so many during a time before where I would have just been in my office, sitting, in my therapy chair with someone on the couch and going, okay, tell me how you feel about that.
Yeah.
Now it's a whole new way of being. I have two books that I've authored. I have a podcast called The Relationship Reset. So my ability to reach and impact more people, since we've all been able to go online and do a lot more work here, has really expanded. And I've been really grateful for that over the last 5, 6 years.
Yeah, that's phenomenal because you're talking about a global reach there. So, because you have this global reach, I would imagine that you are coming across some common hurdles that people face when it comes to their relationships. And when we were having this discussion, you spoke about a particular term called the midlife crisis. And I
Mhm.
thought, what is a midlife crisis? Because for me, I hear about a personal midlife crisis. I hear about the 7 year itch that some people may have. But you were talking about a very specific type of midlife crisis that people can have in their relationships and how, particularly, it's okay and it's okay to normalize it. So, can you expand a bit more about what that looks like for people?
Absolutely. So it's funny. It's like when people think about a midlife time, right? Midlife, they think 50s and 60s. But
Yeah.
if you really do the math, our midlife is more in our 40s and 50s because we think about how old we're probably going to live to be. So, midlife, knowing that we're in our 40s and 50s, is a normal time for us to kind of reflect and stop and say, am I happy? Am I in the career that I want to be in? This is why a lot of people change careers during this time. Am I happy in my relationship with my friends, with, all the people around me? Is this where I want to live? There's a lot of kind of checks and balances we're doing. Like, did that work out? Did I really enjoy doing that? Do I want to change in these ways? Am I happy with my body? All of these things. And in our relationship, usually around that time, we've been together for more than 10 years, typically with our partner. However, there is a point of us going, am I really happy now? And for women who are in the phase of perimenopause, there's even more of a deeper reflection because our tolerance for situations and emotions has shifted and changed.
Mm.
Not only do we think oh, it's just who we are. No, literally in our brain, things have shifted and changed and are shifting and changing. That's impacting how we see our relationship, what we think and feel about our relationship, and what we're willing to tolerate. And because of that, we hit this, what I call kind of a midlife crisis. And it's not just the women who are going through it, the men as well, because they're in that place of, am I happy where I am in my career? Maybe they reached the level they wanted to, and they're like, it didn't really bring me what I thought it would. Or I want to work less hours. And in that process, do I want to be home more? Would that really, be something I'd enjoy? How is my relationship? They start asking these questions too. So we hit this midlife crisis of, oh, is this what I want? Should I stay? Should I go? Do I want the next several decades to be with this person? And these are great questions to be asking, but nobody talks about this being normal to
Mm.
ask these questions. Should I stay or should I go? These questions are the most pivotal, I feel like, turning points for many of fully going into the relationship and being like, we need to do what I call rebuild. Like, we need to completely tear it down and rebuild with
Mm.
something new because we've learned so much.
Yes.
Or to say, I know I have my stuff I'm going to have to work on in any relationship, but I'd rather do it with someone else. And I'm realizing this relationship isn't giving me what I need or want anymore. And I understand I'm going to bring stuff that I'll have to work on wherever I go, but I'd rather go and either do that alone or be with someone else. And so this is, to me, I think something that the more that we stop being afraid of this question or these questions and start to really allow it to be a time of processing, we don't freak out about when we look at our bodies and say, oh, do I
Mm.
like my hair color or not? Should I stay or should I, no, we're like, okay, I'll change it. But because it's a relationship, it's a much deeper, impactful, like it will impact and ripple and affect others. So we
Yeah.
know it's not just something we can walk away from most
Yeah.
of the time. And there's usually fear of responsibility. Well, I feel responsible to
Yeah.
them. I'm afraid of what it'll be like alone. I feel a sense of like failure if this doesn't work. And we allow all of that to kind of convolute what could be a really a big moment of growth for us and to
Yes.
have more clarity. We allow all the outside to impact us.
Yeah. Because that was going to be one of my questions as well. What is the underlying emotions coming from that? Is it shame? Is it guilt? I know you touched upon like fear of failure, maybe fear of being alone. It ought to be some sort of feelings of guilt, shame, betrayal. I'm not a loyal person. If I do that, what's my family, my friends going to think if I make a decision to leave? Particularly if you've got children involved too.
Right, absolutely. A lot of people say, well, I stay for the children. And then I always ask them, what marriage is being modeled for those kids or kid if you stay? Are you guys able to communicate healthy? Are you showing what a good, healthy relationship of connection looks like? If not, then that needs to be a discussion point of, do I stay for the kids just to create a sense of stability? Well, their world is already unstable with how the two of you are interacting. So
Mm,
there is that piece where we have to reflect on what we think is really keeping things, stable actually may not be. And it might be in the better interest of the children that you do separate, that you do divorce, because the short-term grief and pain can then become something that you all grow from and have healthier relationships, all of you in the future versus I'll endure, I'll deal with this, or we will deal with this until the
mm,
kids are out of the house. And then we have the whole, there's a big wave of people that get divorced when the kids go off to college or off to their first job. And that even for the kids is a very hard time to have their
mm.
parents divorced. So there is no good time. There's no good
Yes.
time for a kid. It's really about what are we representing and showing them and modeling for them in this
Mm.
time. And are we being true and authentic to ourselves? Because kids feel it when you're not.
Absolutely. And that whole, if you are putting on a pretense, so say, for example, you are communicating well, you don't think that your kids have any idea about what is going on. Surely you are stifling your authenticity in that stage too. So the way you even show up for your partner, even behind the scenes, it's not going to be your true self. And surely that cramping is not going to be helpful for the relationship dynamic in some way, shape, or form.
Absolutely. And often people will say, well, we make sure we don't argue in front of the
Yeah.
kids and we don't show. And I'm like, well, then they'll never know how to argue. Right? They're gonna think you
Yes.
don't, and it's wrong if
Yeah.
we do, and it's a bad thing.
Yeah.
So instead, look at how can you model healthy disagreements,
Yes.
challenging conversations, because
Yes.
arguments are going to happen, but it's the repair afterwards that really speaks to the health of the relationship. So if we can do that and model it to our children, even better. And going through a time where you're going to say, am I happy in this relationship? Should I
Yeah.
stay or should I go? These aren't the types of arguments to have in front of the kids. That's not what we're talking about. But
Mm.
we're talking about hey, I've asked you for the fifth time this week to do this thing and you continue to forget it. Those types of disagreements, they can happen in front of kids because the kids are forgetting things and you're forgetting things the kids say as
Mm.
well, right? So
Yeah.
everyone's doing it in the family. So how do we have those difficult conversations with each other and how do we make change? They can see that. When it
Mm.
comes to what are the feelings that are underlying why we choose to
Yes.
stay,
Yes.
right? Yes, there's failure, there's shame, there's guilt. There's a fear of like, again, I'll be alone, that nobody will want me, nobody like I've changed. I don't even know if I like myself, who will
Mm.
like me. There's a lot of fear of what will be out there. Many of us know people in the dating world in midlife going, nope.
Yep. Yep.
You're like, oh, I don't want to deal with that. So it is based in fear. But all of those feelings, I'll tell you, are very rooted in your own childhood, your own inner child, and
Mm.
how he or she or they had to adapt. And if they adapted with, okay, I'm going to be the best, or I'm going to make sure nobody's disappointed in me, or I'm going to people please, or whatever, you're going to do it even more so in why you stay in a relationship versus going, no, I actually really want to stay in this relationship. At the end of the day, for me, the reason why I choose to stay in my relationship is because I know I have stuff to work on. I have my wounded child in the sense. The stuff from my childhood, I'm still sorting out and figuring out. We all have it.
Yeah.
I choose my husband because he's the one I want to work through this stuff with. I would have to choose. I mean, you could choose from lots of different people, but I choose him because
Mm.
I know he's the one that kind of rubs me like sandpaper so that it brings it to the surface and I have to face it. I have to deal with it. And
Mm.
I know he's doing the same thing. I represent that sandpaper for him and he's doing the work. So I choose him.
Yeah.
And that's the point where I really think that we have to get into the realization of often people go like, well, there's not enough romance or passion or excitement in the relationship. And I'm like, I get that. But a large reason is because you guys are not working together on your stuff and connecting.
Yeah.
Because once you do that, and once you stop with the defensive, it's you, it's not me, those kinds of things, that's where the deeper connection comes from. That's where the excitement comes from. That's
Mm.
where the passion and the erotic nature comes from, is when we're able to finally let go of the I have to put on the perfect face. I can't fail. All of these things. We let that stuff go. So for me, the choice is I choose him because he's the one I want to go through this journey with.
Mm.
We've
Yeah.
gone through a lot of
Yeah.
journeys together, and I'd rather go through it with him, even in our darkest moments where I'm like, nope, that's it. I'm gone. I'm always thinking, and I'm just going to be alone. Like, because I want to be, right? Like, I just want to be alone. I don't want to deal
Yeah.
with anybody else's crap. I'm also a counselor,
Yeah.
right? So I'm like, I don't want to listen to other people's crap. So I'm like, no, I don't want to, but I'm like, no, when I'm in a calm moment, not at my happiest and not at my lowest, but when I'm calm, I go, no, I really do choose him.
Yeah.
And that knowing helps so much with your nervous system because you should never
Mm.
make a decision from the low, low or a high, high.
Mm-hmm.
But I always imagine like this placid lake, no ripples, nothing moving. And I go, when I'm in that state, I still choose him.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so beautifully expressed because when you was talking about how the midlife crisis in relationships can show up for both men and women, do you find that does it manifest differently for a man as opposed to a woman in terms of what the midlife crisis may look like? Because if it manifests differently, then you're going to have to tailor the way that you support. You talk about how your husband there supports you and you can support him. He's going through a similar journey. So support would look different for each person's.
Absolutely. So for a woman, that midlife, we'll call it crisis or transition, it's just a transition, right?
Yeah.
It's caterpillar, we're in our cocoon, we're
Yeah.
waiting for this new butterfly to emerge. And so this cocoon phase, we are more emotional. We do feel like, I mean, it's like almost everything coming up to the surface. And so you might find that you're eating more, binging, shows more, on your phone more, escapism type stuff, right? Because it's like, oh, I don't want to feel this. But that is your body and your mind calling out for like, I need support. I need to
Mm.
let this stuff out. I need a safe place. And when we
Yes.
don't feel like we have those things, we escape
Mm.
and we procrastinate on it, right?
Yes.
You'll see more emotionality, more rage, more anger, because there's this feeling of like, I don't have control. This isn't what I want in my life, but I have no way to change it. And often I tell people it's like you have built a prison for yourself. You walked in, you didn't lock the door, but you believe you're stuck. And then it's like, oh, you mean I can walk out at any time? Yeah, but it
Mm.
will impact others.
Yes.
And it's actually not a prison, but you've now told yourself it is. So that type of stuff is what creates that rage. Who wants to be trapped or feel like they don't
Mm.
have options or,
Yeah.
there's no availability of different ways of looking at things. So that sort of thing I see with women. I also see that there's a big shift in like looking at their jobs and saying, am I willing to put up with this anymore? There's a lot of am I willing to put up with
Mm.
versus I feel some growth and I want to have something new. It's just like, oh, do I
Yeah.
want to endure this anymore? So there's this kind of negative mindset that starts to frame the question, do I stay or do I go in anything, career, friendships,
Yeah.
instead of what do I want my life to look like?
Okay.
How do I want to start approaching this? How do I want to be that person, right?
Mm.
That higher version of ourselves. And then going into our relationships that way. How do I assess my relationship from that angle? What could change to make it so that I'm able to show up even more as the one I want to be?
Yeah.
That's a huge shift. Now with men, what I notice for them is there is anger because there is like I feel so responsible, right? Responsibility tends to be this culturally, right? No matter where you are in the world, men have always been like, you have the responsibility. It's all on you. It's all on your shoulders. And so this like, they're responsible. But it's funny because in their marriage, the woman feels more responsible.
Mm.
right? Like I have to take out the laundry, I have to take care of all this stuff. It's all on me, the mental load, da da. But
Yeah.
they have this responsibility around, it can be around the finances, it can be around prestige, it can be like, I've got to keep things going. There's just this, it's like genetic, kind of like, the
Yeah.
brain's just wired for that. So there's that piece. So they do start to look at their career. How do I move up further? Or do I want to move up further? Like this is not giving me the fulfillment I thought I would get. And
Mm.
often in midlife, a lot of men go, wow, I reached some of the goals that I wanted to. I'm not happy because they fulfilled the goals everybody else had for them.
Yes.
So that piece is like this, like, how do I reconcile this? Like, oh, I've been living somebody else's life, what they wanted.
Yeah.
And this is where impulsivity can come in.
Hmm.
We see it in the movies, right? Red sports car,
Yes.
having an affair, all of these
Yep.
things. And I'll be honest, women do the same thing. It's just not in Hollywood as much.
Yes.
So, having the affair and just spontaneous, I want to have again control in my life. And how do you feel a sense of control? You go out and spend money. You go out and do that thing. You go out and, quit the job and go, you all.
Yeah.
Like you do reactive things.
Yeah.
And in that, you feel the dopamine high and the adrenaline rush and the excitement. So for men and women, it's all based in the same thing. Am
Mm.
I happy? Is this really what I want for the next several decades? Do I feel like I have any control in my life? Or is life controlling me? But how they respond can look
Yes.
very different. And it's much easier to see the person who does something reactive and impulsive that changes everybody's lives drastically, like spending all that money on that car, leaving everybody behind for that other life. But the person who's imploding is being impacted as well, right? They're doing it to themselves. They're kind of in self-destructive mode because they don't really want to show on the outside that there's a problem.
Yeah.
They're not going to go buy the car because they don't want you to know they're having a challenge and they might be unhappy because that might be a sign of failure.
Mm.
And so they're imploding while the other's exploding. And it's I think it can be such a challenge because we don't talk a lot about it, how
Yes.
normal and natural it is. And because online and on TV and in the movies, what we see is the extremes.
Mm.
And we don't see there's a middle ground.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if this is so normal and natural, is it then inevitable? Or does it actually depend upon the relationship dynamic?
I think it is inevitable because of how we're all conditioned. Most of us are not conditioned from day one of our relationship, our bond, to work on a relationship daily.
Hmm.
We're used to autopilot,
Yeah.
right? You court, you get together, whether you decide to get married or not, you say life partner, okay, maybe kids come, right? Build a life, get a house, all these things, move to this place, and then you go on autopilot
Yeah.
because everything else in life is hard. You don't want your relationship to be hard. And yet it's hard because it's a relationship. It's bringing two people together. And I always say it's like a Venn diagram, right? These two circles that come together, they have a
Mm.
section in the middle and they have the sides that are separate. And I go, that's you, that's your partner. And the third identity is your relationship. It's its own identity. That means it needs work,
Did you hear that,
right?
everyone? It needs work.
Absolutely. It's normal work.
Yeah.
It is healthier ways of talking to each other. It's better understanding yourself because personal growth only makes sense in the context of relationship. Why else would you better yourself? If you were on an island by yourself and bettered yourself, there is no ripple effect of that. It's just you.
Yeah.
But when you better yourself, you show up better at work. You show up better in your family. You show up better for your relationship. You show up better for your friends. You have a ripple effect. So
Mm.
there's no reason for in that Venn diagram, those sections on the outside to work on themselves unless it's in the context of making the identity of the middle, the relationship better. So we have to look at that the importance of it is that we all three identities need work.
Mm. Yeah.
And it's good work. It's good work.
Yeah. Absolutely. So if this is inevitable and it needs work and it's something that we haven't necessarily been educated on to do, how can you prepare for it then? Because there's no point in just landing into this phase and be like, oh, it's here. I've
Have
done no work.
fun.
Hey, happy days. So how can
Yes.
couples and individuals, because you spoke about doing your own personal work, self-growth, personal development, but how can individuals and couples prepare for a phase that is pretty much inevitable?
Yeah. So day one, you're listening or watching this is to go, okay, what is it that I want you to think of your identity as a vehicle and
Mm,
your relationship, that identity is the path, the road that you're on towards the journey of whatever goals and dreams you have together. Am I showing up with a beat up, rusted, frustrated, rageful car? Or am I really taking care of that car that needs to show up with my partner's car? And don't point out, hey, yours has a dent. You know, the oil light has been
yeah,
going for the last year.
exactly. That flat tire.
No, you look at yourself and you say, what is the work I need to be doing to really be the version of myself that I want to be in the healthiest relationship I can have?
Mm,
And then I start to do that work. And I challenge my partner to reflect on the same thing.
mm,
And that's what I love when the couples I work with, it's actually they work with me one on one and then we come together as a group so that they hear we're all challenged by different things. We're all struggling. Like we all hit these phases of stay or go. Even in the healthiest relationship, you do kind of go, the grass looks greener over there. Oh, it
mm,
feels like there'd be less work over there. No, the grass will grow. You have to cut the grass wherever you are. You will have to do this work. So, what you have to do is take a step back and look at yourself and say, how am I communicating? What patterns from my childhood am I replaying?
yeah.
What needs do I expect my partner to fulfill in me that I won't even take the time to fulfill for myself? Like if I say to my partner, you need to show me more respect, but I don't go to bed on time, I'm
Yes.
not eating healthy meals or taking care of myself, I'm not exercising or, getting away from my computer all the time. I'm not setting boundaries with people. I'm not respecting myself. Why
Yeah.
would I expect him to respect me?
Mm,
Why would I demand that of him?
yeah.
So it's that type of work where we have to go inside and go, whoa, yep, I
Wow.
want him to speak to me better, but I keep rolling my eyes and interrupting him.
Hmm.
Why am I expecting anything better from him if I'm not doing it first? You
Yes.
you focus on that.
Yeah.
And as you do that, you start to see that they're like, "Whoa, she's changing, she's shifting," or he's acting differently. He's taking a deep breath before exploding at me like, "Okay."
Mm,
And the system starts to change. And what I
yes.
say to couples about do I stay or do I go is I say, give it a good 4 months, and I want you to put all your intention and focus into breaking out of autopilot in your relationship. And I want you to do the work 2% better every day. And if
Yes.
after 4 months, 6 months, if you're like, yeah, we've been in this pretty long time, it's going to take a little bit longer. 4 to 6 months of you intentionally working on yourself. If your partner does not start to make any shifts,
Hmm.
I'm not saying 180 because you're not making a 180.
Yeah.
Any shifts, that's a pretty clear sign.
Mm,
And that's a clear sign to sit down and have the conversation of, hey, do you want to be in this relationship anymore?
yeah.
Because I can tell it's autopilot.
Mm,
And I want to be married to somebody who wants to be like hands on the wheel. I'm in, let's fly this plane.
absolutely.
And that's the
So,
conversation you have.
yeah. So you're in this dilemma, stay or go. So there's a problem that you're trying to resolve right now.
Yeah.
Do you tackle this problem because you're sharing some really great inner work exploration there for people? Do you start to tackle that by yourself first before you have a conversation with your partner to say, "Ooh, I'm going through a phase right now"? Do you start the work by yourself, see how things shift for you, and then see if you communicate that with your partner?
Yes, you definitely do that work for yourself first. And I highly recommend doing it in the context of either a coach or a counselor. It
Mm,
doesn't need to be 6 months to a year long work. It can take just a few months of just getting someone who will ask you particular questions
mm,
to get you thinking. Because it's very easy for us to put a wall up even to ourselves of I don't really want to touch those tender points within me.
yeah.
I'd rather just be angry at them. So having someone to walk you through those conversations and to point out, did you notice this about the things you were saying?
Yeah.
Did you notice that you're really expecting him to meet needs you're not fulfilling for yourself? I
Mm,
wonder what it would be like if you started working on yourself and that. And then if he doesn't respect you, then you have a clear signal, red
mm,
flag, just like
yeah.
at the beginning of a relationship.
Yeah.
Ooh, you're not showing me respect, but I show myself respect. Red flag. Nope.
Mm,
So I always say have it in the context of you and someone you can trust. And friends are not always that person, unfortunately. Then you go, okay, no, I can see I really don't want to be with this person. And I always say, if they changed tomorrow, if they started the fight, right? They not the bad fight between you, but like the fight of
yeah.
working on themselves and going, yes, I am committed and I am in this. And all of a sudden they shifted. Would you be like, finally? Or would you be like, no, actually, I still don't want it? Well, that's a clear sign. And
Yeah.
then it's not that you need to give them some major excuse. Well, you're not enough of this and you don't do enough, because that's what we think. If we're going to leave a marriage, we need to have some good reasons.
Mm,
That's when you just say, hey, I'm realizing I'm not the right partner for you, and you're not the right partner for me, and I really am ready to step away from this. I absolutely take ownership. This is going to hurt and be hard. It's going to be difficult with the kids or whatever, whatever.
mm,
But I'm not going to point the finger at you. I'm just going to take ownership. I've made this choice.
yeah.
And then you step away, right? We make this such a it is an emotional experience. There's
Yes.
so much grief behind it. But we create in our minds for others, we have to give reasons. Well,
Mm,
he didn't do enough of this. She always forgot this. There wasn't.
yes.
But
Yes.
all you're doing is actually creating more hurt and pain in the divorce or the
Mm,
separation than if you just said, like, I just take ownership that I'm making this decision and I know it's the right one for me.
yeah. That is becoming at peace, acceptance. You talk about the grief cycle, for example, and you can get to that acceptance stage. But acceptance doesn't mean that you are condoning somebody's behavior, even that partner isn't behaving in a way that you would like them to be behaving. It's about
Right.
allowing yourself to release and let go of the emotions, of the thoughts. How can you navigate this? Because you've also spoken about the um, our nervous system, for example. So, how can we navigate this in a way that is full of self-compassion and also able to regulate our nervous system at the same way, which is probably thinking fight, flight,
Yes.
flee, all those kind of things, fawn,
Yeah.
freeze, all of those things that could be coming to people in terms of just trying to survive.
Absolutely. And I'll give you another piece is it's in relationships, it's fight, flight, or fix. So you
Fix.
might go, I've said the D word now. Oh God, they're all upset. I feel awful. Let me fix it. No, I'm not leaving here. I'm going to be extra kind and good for you for the next several months because I know I've screwed up, right? We go into fix mode because we don't like when somebody else has negative feelings. One of the biggest things I challenge my clients is to start to develop their tribe. It's the group of people that they can come to who are solid people working on their stuff.
Yeah.
And sometimes, again, sometimes part of your tribe is a psychologist, a coach, a counselor, somebody in your community who's a leader and has this training to be able to sit with you and not make it about them.
Mm, yes.
And then those family members who say, it's kind of the ride or die friends and family
Yeah.
members like, I'm by you. I may not understand it, but I'm not here to try to convince you differently, but I'll just listen.
Mm.
And frankly, when you're going through a challenge like that, it can't just be one or two people because they'll get burnout listening to all of it, right?
Yes.
Yeah, they got to process with
Yeah.
you, and it's a lot. So really having your tribe and your group, and there are groups online and in your community of men and women and people who are going through these challenges too. They're just a little more quiet about that
Mm.
space because it's very
Yes.
private.
Yes.
So being willing to do that search online, or to reach out to someone and say, I'm looking for this type of group of people who are questioning and need some support or going through separation, and
Mm.
how do we stay calm in it? And I'm a big proponent of, from the moment you hear us talk about this as well, is to start to learn what really calms my nervous system. Not what gives me the dopamine hit in the moment and makes me feel good. What calms me? And
Mm.
how do I get very strict and disciplined about doing those things through this challenging time, knowing there will be moments where I'm going to give in, completely get drunk or eat all that food or, stay up
Yeah.
till 2 a.m. and then I got to get up at 5 a.m. for something. You're going to have those moments too.
Yes.
But the more you can be on your side and on your team by taking care of you,
Mm.
the easier it's going to be to sit with the dysregulation that happens in a relationship or for the others around who don't understand, who are upset, who
Yeah.
struggle. And if you have children, they are going to be needing a space for their emotions, and you'll have to be that space too. And
Mm.
how to sit with their disappointment and their hurt and how their world is being changed.
Yeah.
Because you're holding vision of what better will come from this. And I was 14 when my parents divorced.
Mm.
And I think about that in that moment, it felt like, and I was so angry. You say all the words, you do all the things, you rebel in all the ways.
Yeah.
And I look back now and I'm like, God, thank goodness that happened.
Yeah.
Right. So it's holding on to that vision that as long as I can be a healthy person, parent to my child through this process and model as best I can,
Yeah.
that in the end we will come through this and
Mm.
they'll be grateful that I didn't stay in a marriage that I really actually was miserable and unhappy with, or where there was, entitlement, narcissism, abuse, whatever, addiction, things
Mm.
that we tend to hide because we don't want other people to see.
Yeah. Such good advice there. Lots of exploration to do. And if you're holding that vision as to how we can move forward, then what it sounds like is that a midlife crisis transition in terms of that phase in the relationship can actually strengthen a relationship rather than destroy it. Because some people might be listening to this thinking, oh, I don't want to get to this stage because what's going to go on. But it can actually strengthen a relationship if you do the quote unquote work.
Absolutely. Absolutely. There are a lot of people who separate and divorce and are still really great friends afterwards because they were able to have healthy communication throughout the process. Not perfect, but healthy. And healthy means disharmony, repair,
Mm,
harmony,
yeah.
disharmony, repair, taking
Yes.
ownership, apologizing,
Mm.
doing it differently the next time, right? Like all of these things help to repair. That can happen.
Yeah. And I just had that visual when you're talking about having vehicles and you've got your car, it's like helping to repair the other person's car. They might have a flat tire, they might have a brake fluid image, whatever is showing up for
Yep.
that person. But if you can be there to support them to help repair that car and still journey along, whatever that journey looks like, then I have that analogy there. I think it's a great one that you've pictured in my mind there in terms of how you can still work together and journey along. It might look like a different vessel, but you're still
Yep.
there to be able to support each other.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you are the fixer, I would just say be careful because you don't need to fix their tire. You can tell them how they can fix their tire,
Mm, yeah.
right? You can say, I have found this to be really helpful. Are you open to a suggestion? Because I'm not going to fix your tire for you, right?
Yeah, yeah, that's great communication. So, if people are in a midlife transition, and for example, they've been together for about 10 years.
Yeah.
So, this sounds like day one work. As in, if you are going to be communicating healthily, you don't just save it for 10 years later. This is something that you start to embed from a very early stage. Are there any practices that couples can do from the get-go that help to prepare them for this situation?
Yeah, definitely. So weekly, I always remind my couples to have a couples check-in. It is not to plan the week ahead or a vacation or what taxes need to be done or whatever. It is, how are you? How are you? What's going on in your world? Just like you would with a friend, right? And your partner then gets a chance to answer as well. And then you say, third identity, how's our relationship going?
Mhm.
And that's where you have that space, but you literally have to carve this out in your calendar, schedule it,
Yes.
mark it there, and never, unless there really is like, I was not able to because I was on a plane and we were not, like,
Yeah.
if you need to do it on the phone because you're on a work trip, do it on the phone, but never be willing to compromise it because there was something easier, better, something
Mm.
else you'd rather do. You're too tired. If you're too tired, then shorten the conversation. but still have it because you must show yourself, your partner, and the relationship that you still prioritize the identity of this relationship.
Mm.
You prioritize it.
Yeah.
And when you start to prioritize it, you'll notice when difficult things come up, you'll hear them better. I'm
Mm.
not really feeling happy in this relationship. I just feel like we're not very connected. Oh, okay. What are some things that making you feel like we're disconnected right now? And you might hear from your partner, I don't know. As I'm starting to change, I feel like I'm pulling away from you.
Mm.
Okay. Would you like me to come closer or would that feel like I'm chasing you? Right? Like then you start to listen better because you have a space to practice listening. And most of us have really suck at listening,
Yeah.
thank you, social media. We do a
Yeah.
horrible job of listening. We do a great job about talking about ourselves. But it forces us to really listen to our partner.
Mm.
And it reminds us we don't need to get defensive because we're in a safe place. Because for months, we already have been doing this couple check-in
Yes.
and it's been okay. Right?
Yeah.
And it hasn't been, let me unload all this stuff. I call it problem stacking. Let
Yeah.
me problems. And you did this, and you did this, and you did this. It's like, whoa, can we pick one problem and work on that first before you lay out 20
Yeah.
more?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's not a problem stacking opportunity. It is a check-in on our relationship. Let's check the pulse. Ooh, the pulse is a little bit weak. What can we do this week to strengthen it? Do we need to go for walks together after dinner? Do
Yeah.
we need, do I need to call you a little extra this week? You're having a tough week. How can I
Mm.
support you? These are things that if we're not talking
Yeah.
and we're not talking about, we're not just focused on the house, who's cleaning what, when is this due, how do we gotta, like
Yeah.
I call those chief household officer meetings. Those are CHO meetings. You are the CEO of your home and your
Yeah.
family. It's the CHO because it's the house.
Yeah.
Have those meetings separate.
Hmm.
That's its own, bring out the count. Date nights are not CHO meetings. Stop making them the same thing.
Ah.
Date nights are check-ins at a higher level.
Mhm.
Let's have fun together. Let's connect. Let's do things we enjoy. Let's laugh. Let's stop eating and staring at each other and then being on our phones or fighting about something because we're not going and doing fun things. We're doing what
Yeah.
we've been conditioned. Date night is go to a restaurant, watch a movie. No,
Yeah.
go do something out of the box. Have
Yeah.
fun. Be
Yeah.
creative.
Mm. And I love that. The fun, the creativity, the curiosity as well, the experimentation that sometimes we can stop doing when it comes to relationships. And of course, it can become what dry, boring. It may not feel like it's got much life in it, but if we can embed that, as you said, into a weekly check-in, how are things going with us? Just it becomes normal. And when it's normal, it feels safe to us. So it doesn't feel like, oh, it's enough opportunity for somebody to tell me what I haven't done right. This is just a generally, we do this anyway. Through the highs, through the lows, whatever that looks like, it's just so normal and natural. Then, of course, that's going to regulate our nervous system because it makes us feel safe. And we've got
Yep.
that space where we can be vulnerable with each other if we just normalize it from the get-go.
Absolutely. And for us all to understand, our emotional intelligence is
Yeah.
kind of at a low level. Some of us a little bit higher than others, but really at a low level because, again, we weren't modeled this.
Yeah.
This is not what it's taught in school. A lot of us are out learning as we go. But if we're not willing to admit that we're learning as we go, then we're going to stay defensive and with a wall up, and nobody will be able to connect to us. So it's okay. It's okay that you say things the wrong way. It's okay that you
Yeah.
get defensive and reactive, but just take ownership.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm stubborn. I want it my way.
Yeah.
It's uncomfortable when it's not my way. It reminds me of when I was 7 years old and my dad would never listen. So when you don't listen to me, I get and I
Yeah.
feel the same rage. Own it. It's
Yeah.
okay. But if we don't own it, we're going to keep clashing.
Absolutely. But there's two phrases that I say. You've got to name it to claim it. So
Yep.
take that ownership. And then also what we resist persists. If we
Yep.
resist what is showing up for us, it will persist. And at some point, it will be a much larger issue or problem to resolve. So own it, can't get to peace of it and say, okay, so how do I move forward? Is this something I want to work on? How can I heal through this? What's going to be the impact on other people as well? There's so much that can be done, but
Yep.
you don't have to do it alone. As you said there, Katie, you can set up your tribe. You can go and have a tribe. You can speak to a coach for a therapist to help you see your blind spot. It doesn't have to be a lonely journey. And that's where the empowerment comes through. It's when you can say,
Yes.
I'm willing to do the work and I don't have to do it alone. And what does that look like for me?
Yep. Absolutely.
So you've spoken about so many misconceptions and also myths. Is there anything else that you would like to debunk as well during this conversation? Anything that comes up for you to think, oh, that's a really big misconception about the midlife crisis that we haven't already
Yeah.
spoken?
That if you have that question, that's a sign of failure. I mean,
Yeah,
there's something like we're not in grade school anymore, people. Like, can we get out of that mindset of, failure is bad, you get an F or it's written in red?
yeah.
Why can't it be that we're growing and that we're learning and we're adapting? Because
Mm,
we think how we started the relationship is how we continue on. I don't know about you, but when I started my relationship, my marriage, and even past relationships, who I was in the beginning was not who I was years into it.
yeah,
So why
yeah,
am I expecting it to continue the same way? The relationship, its own identity, grows and evolves.
yeah,
So being able to say it's not about failure, it's about a growth opportunity and saying, hey, we went into this marriage with these expectations and thinking this is how it would look. It didn't look like that at all. Can we tear that all down and start
yeah.
over? I mean,
Yeah.
Esther Perel, amazing marriage therapist, will say that in the Western world, every couple will have two to three, or every person will have two to three long-term solid relationships. You get to decide if it's with the same person. So it's a reminder that we often need to shed the old skin of the old relationship and really
Yeah,
rebuild anew. Instead of feeling like that's failure, expect it to be normal.
yeah, yeah. That is, that can bring so much compassion for what you just said there because it's the reframe that you were speaking there to see it as a learning opportunity, a growth opportunity, rather than beating ourselves up with the whole, I got an F, I failed. Who said so? Obviously, there's some social conditioning, there's some cultural conditioning, perhaps childhood conditioning that has influenced the way that we see that. It's for us to take that ownership back and just say, no, I'm not going to be quote unquote a victim to failure.
Right.
Now, I'm going to be a victor and I'm going to stand in my power and I'm going to take ownership and I'm going to say, yes, how have I learned? How have I grown? You know, the person who
Yep.
you said you were at the start of a relationship is completely different
Yeah.
to who you are now. So make peace with that. The same way that we would talk to a child, we want to give them encouragement in terms of how they're doing. Have that same compassion and kindness towards yourself. I always advocate for that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I absolutely love this conversation that we're having. And you've spoken about your husband, you've spoken about the relationship journey just a little bit. So I'm curious because
Yeah.
um I do ask my guests in terms of what have been some of the key learnings and lessons that you have learned along your own personal relationship journey, past and present.
Yeah. Well, I'll share again. So I live in Germany. My husband is German and I'm American. So we have a lot of cultural clashes, even 15 years into being together, almost 16 years. There are things that we don't realize, especially as you get older, you kind of start to bring up those like cultural things come up and you're
Yeah.
like, this is just who I am. And it's like, no, that's a conditioning. That has been a big learning and journey process for us is to better own what is our cultural conditioning and how does it impact the other person,
Ah.
right? I'm very much from a culture that was like, debt is fine, spend, it's okay, who cares, right? Like, relax,
Mhm.
the credit card,
Yeah.
student loan debt's good, all the stuff they feed us, woohoo, right? It's building your credit score, all that crap they give us.
Yeah.
Whereas my husband's from a country that's you put down as much cash first before for the house, for the car, for whatever. You save up. You look at, the long term, what are we going to pass to the next generation?
Mm.
And you plan that from the beginning as you're saving, not just, okay, now we're 70, what can we pass on? Like now. And
Mm.
that was for me, like, what are we talking about generational wealth and passing
Yeah.
this on to our kids? Like, oh, what?
Yeah.
It took a lot in me. So that's just one example of many
Yeah.
of where something you wouldn't think about, but culturally is very prevalent. We're not talking about generational wealth in America with, when you're in economics class as a 12th grader,
Mm.
okay, you've learned how to live on a budget. Okay, well, how are you also going to be saving and what is it you want to pass to the next generation? You're moving houses every couple years. You're changing careers every couple years. And here, their homes are like, yeah, my great grandmother lived in this home.
Yes.
What? It still exists?
Yeah.
It didn't get torn down for apartments or something,
Yeah.
right? So that I think that's been a big part of our journey. Another piece is we're both firstborn.
Uh-huh.
And the first grandchild on one side of his family, he was the first grandchild. On both sides of the family, I was the first grandchild. So that feeling of like, I'm important, I should
Yes.
be listened to,
Yes.
like I'm the oldest, my decision usually gets picked first. Those things, oh, that's a fun, like where you
Yeah.
like butt heads like crazy. Um, yeah, and I honestly I think another piece is the with many relationships, especially if you have cultural differences, the patriarchy, that
Mm.
historical conditioning of, well, I said no and I don't want it. Okay, well, that doesn't mean it's going to be a no. It doesn't mean we don't do it, right? And that there's that energy that exists because it's what we both grew up in our families
Uh,
and the grandparents and that thing where you're like, actually,
yeah.
we both have a say.
Yeah.
And just because you said no, we have three kids. I'm like, four of us said yes. So,
You're outnumbered.
oh well, and we're all girls.
Yeah.
Woohoo, right? So
Yeah.
these are pieces that we've had to face too. And it's something that's not explicit and it's something that neither of us actively desire to have in our relationship, but it shows itself.
Yes.
Entitlement shows itself. And it's like, ooh, how do you bring that to the forefront? Knowing that it's just a subconscious thing. It's not actually a conscious desire
Yeah.
because that can really hurt, right? When it's like, wow, you really have an entitled view. Like, whoa,
Yeah.
whoa, like I'm not trying to. That's not how I want to be, but it
Yes.
is showing up. And those things that I think learning to how to do that dance with each other. How do I bring
Mm.
up your imperfections that really are hurting me, that I know you're not fully aware of, that I know you're not doing intentionally,
Yeah.
but it needs to change, right? That dance is really a delicate balance.
Mm. Thank you for being so open and transparent with that because in this world of interconnectedness where there will be cultural differences because so many people are hooking up with people from all over the world,
Yeah.
there's bound to be that cultural element that I don't believe many people actually think about too much. You know the person, of course you meet the person, but then there's that layer and then the wider family perhaps, and there's the hierarchies that you might have to consider. There's much to in that pot that is
Yes,
stone.
absolutely. Well, I mean, think about a country, the UK, the North versus
Yeah,
the South, very different personalities,
absolutely.
right? So the cultural differences can happen even within your own country. I
Yeah,
think about being from the States, a New
yeah,
Yorker versus somebody from like LA.
yeah,
Very different personalities,
yeah.
right? Different ways of looking at life and time and how we do things, and they'll clash. But
Mm,
until you go, oh, this isn't about me, it's about what I was conditioned to believe is part of my identity, which is your personal work, your vehicle. What's my
yes,
vehicle look like? Am I taking care
exactly.
of it? Do I
Mhm.
understand how it works? Then we're able to have those discussions.
Yeah. I think that many people will be taking that on board is that exploration, that curiosity behind it. It's not a right or a wrong thing, a good or a bad. It's just being curious about what that looks like for your relationship dynamic. So you've spoken about dancing with your partner, that intrinsic dance that you may have. So I also love to ask my guests as well, what's their personal definition of love in the terms of a romantic relationship?
Ooh, I love this question. So mine has sort of an evolution to it because I think love in the beginning of a relationship really is about the dopamine and the endorphins and
Yeah,
I just feel like you're a great partner and it's rarely practical, though somewhat practical. Like, you seem strong and capable. Like
yeah,
you seem like really kind and loving. You'll be a great mother or you'll be a great
yeah,
father. So I think in the beginning, love really is based off of what we understand of how to assess love. As we become romantic partners and deepen our relationship and are together longer, what I believe love really is about is I know I need to work on me, and like I said earlier, and I choose you to do it with.
mm,
And there is a safety and a comfort between us that isn't autopilot comfort. It's I
Mm.
really know I can be with you and I can be authentic and you can hold me in that space. Maybe not always, but enough that there is this connection between us.
Yeah.
And I think love and wisdom are really interconnected. And
Mm.
that takes time, right? Wisdom takes time.
Yes.
And that for me is what love is. Love and wisdom is just it's something that takes time and it's really a choice of I choose you and I know I can consistently stay in this space with you.
Yeah. That's so beautiful, Katie, because also from the aspect of being chosen, that person has entrusted you with their heart, with their mind, with their body, with their spirit, whatever that may be. And I've chosen you to be on the receiving end of that. That's quite an honorable position to be
Right?
in, I would say. Somebody's chosen you to be their safety net. Because I trust you and you've created that space that I want to have to share this journey with you, not only
Right.
for the chooser, but for the chosen as well. I think it's such a beautiful connection there.
You don't want to be an autopilot when you've been entrusted with the jewels, right?
Yes,
You know, it's like, here's
exactly.
the diamonds, and you're like, oh, I'll just throw them in my back pocket. No, it's like, oh my gosh, I'll take care of these. I'll protect these. This is matters.
Absolutely. Oh, Katie, that's so wonderful. That's going to connect. I've connected with me, so I know that's going to connect with so many people. Love and wisdom, it just all comes together. I just completely am aligned with that. Katie, this has been such a wonderful conversation. So many people will be sitting there feeling so empowered actually now when it comes to that dilemma, do I stay or go? Because now they've actually got some action steps that they can take to not fear that stage in their life, to actually be like, okay, how can I navigate it in a way that, can strengthen the relationship and strengthen my sense of identity too, who I am and how I show up authentically for the journey ahead.
Yeah.
Such an amazing conversation. I would love for you to leave with the audience because I have a closing tradition here on the show. A parting tradition is one key takeaway to help them along their journey of love, well-being, and relationships.
Yeah, I think the key takeaway from today's episode is that asking the question, should I stay or should I go, doesn't mean your marriage is over and that there's anything wrong with you. It's the natural progression of a relationship.
Brilliant. Katie, where can the audience find out more about you? Where are you hanging out?
Yes. So I enjoy Instagram. So you can find me at katie.rustler. And I'd love to leave your audience with conversation starter cards. So it's a way for you to build that connection. And if you're like, I don't know what to talk about in these couples check-ins, it gives you easy questions. So it's that'll be in the show notes as well, that link. So it's just for me, it's something you download, you put on your phone, and then you're like, okay, today we're going to ask this question. And, tomorrow we'll ask this question. It takes the
Yeah.
guesswork out of how do we have deeper connection in our
Mm.
conversation. And then I'm on LinkedIn at Katie Rustler. You can find me there too.
Oh, absolutely brilliant. You said that you got your podcast, relationship resets as well. People
Yes.
can tune in there. And you got
Yeah.
books. You got two books.
Absolutely. I have two books, The New Face of Grief. So the books are focused more on the grief work
Yeah.
because often in relationships we have grief too. But when we are going through our own journey, our vehicle, there's a lot of grief work. So the New Face of Grief helps you better understand hidden grief in your life. So not grief related to death, but grief related to all the rest of life that didn't go the way you thought it would. And
Yeah.
the second one is for those who are mothers who had challenging birth experience, and it's giving birth to motherhood. And it teaches you how to, in a therapeutic way, write your birth story so that you can share it without it feeling traumatic every time.
Oh, how wonderful. So many resources there. And thank you for the gift of the conversation starters. All of your social media links and your handles will be in the show notes so people can
Thank you.
easily access that. Follow Katie. She does great work. And Katie, once again, thank you so much for your time and your energy today. It's been so wonderful.
Thank you. I've enjoyed it as well.
Brilliant. And for everybody who has listened to this wonderful, empowering discussion, I want to thank you for your time, for your attention, and for your energy. And until the next episode, take great care of yourself and others too.